you're not a child, you're an adult. And I don't agree with that. Come on, I'm still small, very small at that. But yes, it's the 11th hour, 10 minutes gone past the hour of 11. And this is the nation's capital, Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on. At 11 o'clock on Mondays, what we do here in the studio is the mind and body. Now, this is a segment that deals with your physical, your psychological, your mental well-being. And it is important that, you prosper in all things. And in your health as well, you prosper. And that's the only way that you can be prosperous in your health is if you take adequate care of your health. Now, if you would not do that by yourself, we have dedicated this entire hour to talking about the things that you can do to ensure that you stay healthy. So today, luckily, it's a Children's Day, and today's conversation is about World or the Child. How do you call it again? Oh no, not me missing out. It's called the National Child TB Testing Week. Now, tuberculosis is not just, it doesn't just affect people of the older age. Even children can also be affected by tuberculosis. But there are certain things that you need to know about this. But I'm not alone in the studio. I have a professional here. I have Dr. Olakunle Daramola, and he is the Assistant Director, National Tuberculosis, Leprosy, and Buruli Ulcer Control Program from the Federal Ministry of Health. Thank you so much, Dr. Daramola, for joining us.
Thank you, Martha. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, children. Happy Children's Day.
To me, right?
Of course.
Thank you. Anyways, so yes, together we'll be talking about tuberculosis, how it affects the child, the testing that can be done for the child, and everything possible. So please just keep it locked in here with us. It's Martha, and I'm not alone, like you know. I'm with Dr. Daramola, and together we will be hosting the program on Tuberculosis Child Testing Week. Keep it locked in here and call a friend to call a friend and call everybody that needs to have this very vital piece of information to gather around the radio. We will be right back.
Do you have questions about your health? Well, look no further. On Mind and Body, you are our business. Tune in as we discuss with health experts on everything that concerns you and your well-being. Mind and Body. Mondays, 11 a.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja.
All right, I didn't go for long. 30 minutes gone past the hour of 11, and it's the nation's capital, Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on. And the conversation for today is tuberculosis, and it's the National Child Testing Week. And now I understand that this particular one is primarily celebrated in Nigeria, because in other parts of the world, I think they must have conquered things like that. It's not very eminent in those countries, but in Nigeria we still battle with some of these things. Now, until we get to the point where we are completely free of things like this, we will keep having conversations like this on radio, and activisms will constantly happen to ensure that we sensitize people as much as possible to know what it is they need to do to stay healthy. Now, Dr. Daramola, let's talk about an overview of tuberculosis. What is tuberculosis?
All right, thank you very much. Good morning once again. Tuberculosis is a disease that is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis, that is a form of bacteria, and then it's transmitted via the hair, that is, it's airborne. Okay. So when people cough, sneeze, sing too loudly or shout, and then they release droplets, and then somebody else is in close proximity, that person can get infected with tuberculosis. Okay. So basically, there are two stages. We can say somebody is infected when the organism is in that person, but the person may not have the disease. Okay. So you could be infected but not sick or healed from tuberculosis. Okay. So basically, at the end of the day, when someone now becomes healed, there are symptoms that will show up. Fever, most likely, then cough for more than 2 weeks, persistent cough, then weight loss that is unexplained, so it's not like the person is dieting or trying to lose weight, and then fatigue, and then night sweats also, especially. So these are the signs you see, and then so there are different stages. So somebody could be susceptible, which means it's possible to get it. All of us are susceptible, actually. We are all at risk of getting tuberculosis.
Okay, so susceptible means you can be at risk.
Yes. Okay. So somebody crossing the road is at risk of,
Accident.
if you don't look properly. So
Yeah.
we're all at risk, but not all of us that are at risk or susceptible will be exposed.
Okay.
So a fraction of us will be exposed, maybe to those who have it.
Okay.
And then out of those who are exposed, another fraction will be infected. So
Okay.
it's not everyone. For example, even if you're close to someone that has tuberculosis and the person coughs in the elbow, obeys observe cough etiquette, of course you might not be infected. Now, out of those that are infected again, another fraction would now be having the disease. Those that will be sick from tuberculosis. Now, there are reasons why that happens. There's an estimate that about a quarter of people already have the infection. Like if you count 4 people, one person might have the infection. But there are reasons why not everybody that has the infection gets the disease or comes down with it.
Okay.
So, for example, if the person now has malnutrition, person is not eating properly, HIV, diabetes, smoking, alcohol, these are things that will reduce the immunity.
Okay.
So we're saying that the body can actually fight tuberculosis once the immunity is up.
Okay.
But once the immunity goes down, then tuberculosis now becomes a disease.
Okay. So infections
Yeah.
doesn't mean you have the
The
disease.
Yes.
Wow.
So, for example, some people go to let's say a laboratory.
Yeah.
They do some malaria tests. They say they have so degree of malaria plus and all that. But then not everybody really comes down
Okay.
with severe malaria.
Okay. All right. We see that there are 3 stages of tuberculosis. One says the primary infection, B, latent TB infection, and then the third is active TB disease. Can you just help us to break this down a little? Because I know you have probably said some of that, right now.
Yeah. So the active TB disease is the worst case scenario that we've described when the person already has disease. The latent, when somebody is, something is just at a potential stage, that's latent TB infection. And then the primary infection is at the time when the person is exposed and then contracts the disease. So primary infection, when the person contracts the disease. The latent TB infection is when the person might be at the tip towards going towards the active TB disease, maybe when the immunity is going down.
Okay.
And then the active TB disease is when it's now full-blown in the body.
Full blown. So one is at the start point. The second one is progression, and then the third one is active, like the name implies.
Yes.
All right, how common is tuberculosis? Because this statistic says about 10 million people become ill with TB throughout the world. And, and about 1.5 million people died from this disease in 2020. We're still having this number. This is 2024. And, with the kind of activism that is being done by the Ministry of Health, it just shows that, we're making little progress, but, it's still eminent here.
Yeah, so even in Nigeria, you could have, there's still a high level of incidence. We call it incidence new cases of tuberculosis, So most of the time, this disease in a year, one person that is infected could spread it to 10 or 15 people within a year. So imagine if 100 people are infected or having the disease rather, and then it's something that can spread easily because it's airborne.
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing a lot of this advocacy, and then people also die from it when they don't go for when they don't check on time, because some of this cough, because the major symptom is cough.
Yeah.
Most times people just go to the chemist shop, like we say it, patent medicine vendors.
Cough syrup.
Yeah. So everybody just self-medicates, and then most people don't take care. Most people take all manner of other things without really checking whether it's actually tuberculosis. And then the funny thing is, it's so easy to treat. The name sounds very big, but then right now on the phone, you can dial *3340# or just call 3340, and it's free.
Okay.
And then you can ask questions, and then you can get answers. You can even know where to go to get treatment, and everything is free, from testing to diagnosis, that is confirmation of the disease, to treatment. Everything is free.
Okay. Thank you so much for that information. I mean, we'll reiterate that, as the show progresses, so that we know that it's not something that you have to spend your money on. Because what deters most Nigerians is the fact that they have to spend their money from their personal pocket to, and you doctors, you don't even help, because you say tuberculosis. Sometimes you guys will just go and call it one name, and you're like, back pain. The first time I knew that lumbar spondylosis was back pain, I'm like, why do you guys have to call it like that? It looks like I'm going to die pretty soon. So
there's Latin and Greek.
yes, so you give me that name and they just feel like, my own has finished. So they think it's something
not that
very
bad.
severe.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. So I think that's something very important to highlight because the name sounds bigger than what it really
actually is.
You know, because within 6 months, people actually get killed,
Mm-hmm.
like totally killed. So we're dealing with a disease that, in the olden days, you know, it was actually terrible. People used to be, you know, separated in, you know, different sanitariums and all that.
Society,
Yeah. So, but over the years, technology has improved,
Okay.
innovation has come. Initially, even as of some years ago, within a decade ago, you could have people treating tuberculosis with injection, but now everything is now tablet, which means it's easier to
okay.
cope with. And then we're even looking at cases where, you know, just within 6 months, from the time the person starts treatment to 6 months, the person is totally cured. Like you will test and then you won't find anything like tuberculosis.
Is that possible though? Because we've seen a lot of people complain about it. In fact, these complaints will become very profound at the end of the year again, because we know that that's the Japa window where people get to, you know, leave the
Yeah,
country and all
yeah,
of that. And then tuberculosis screening is a must.
Yeah.
Before you leave Nigeria to any part of the world, they would require you to do tuberculosis screening. And I hear most of them have to travel all the way to Abuja to have that screening done. Now, and some people, they probably have had this thing 6 years ago. They've been treating and they told them, you know what, you are completely, you know, cured of the
yeah.
disease. And they go back to these centers to run these tests and they find traces of tuberculosis in their system again, which prevents them from even traveling in the first place.
Yeah, so it is possible to be reinfected, you know, just like malaria. People can be cured of an episode and then they get infected. But most of the time, that is not, that requires us finding out more details because these things vary on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So, for example, you have people that probably didn't even complete the treatment.
Okay.
And then that gives rise to drug-resistant tuberculosis, which is another level of treatment that is more intensive. So basically, we may not be able to confirm or deny that until we know the details of that particular case. But generally speaking, I agree with the fact that it's at the point of that screening when people are ready to japa that they really come face to face with,
I have
what's
to
really
run this.
tuberculosis? Yes, and they might not be so much aware, and that's why we're here with the media, with you, Eagles FM, to make sure that we increase the awareness, so that it's not only when things are very urgent that we need to learn about tuberculosis. And like you said at the beginning, most of the other countries outside of Nigeria, of course, they've been able to battle this successfully. This is a disease that's been on since maybe the 17th century, 18 something, and then we're still battling with it. And it's also because there are other contextual issues. There are issues in the environment that also makes it more difficult. For example, when you look at the crisis around and look at IDPs, overcrowding, you know, slums. So these are things that have to do with what we call the social determinants of health, the larger picture of the society. So because when people are in close proximity and someone has it and the person coughs and the person is not on treatment, you know, it makes every other person at greater risk to that. And especially also children, because when adults also have it and they don't treat it on time, and children are around them, of course, it's easier for children. And then, you know, their immunity might not be as strong as that of adults. So that makes it much more at a greater risk for them.
All right. So now let's go to the entire reason for you being here, which is the National TB Testing Week. What is this about? Because like I said, it's just a Nigerian thing. It's not, you know.
Okay, so there is a World TB Day that we celebrate every 24th day of March. So that is past. Then there is this National Charity TB Testing Week that we're celebrating throughout this week across the nation. And it's because we detected that there is a gap when it comes to children. With adults, we've really pushed it to a large extent. Tuberculosis is most common in men, and then followed by women. So maybe about 50-something in men, about 30 or so percent in women, then about 10 or 12% in children. So for men, for adults generally, men and women, it's easier to, you know, get their sample because the sample, unlike, you know, malaria that you take maybe blood sample and all that. So this is sputum, and people have to cough. And, you know, children may not be able to do that easily.
Cool, yeah.
Sometimes they will just come up with saliva instead of the real thing. And so that's why we really feel we have to intensify efforts. And our data shows over the years that there is still a gap in children. So let's say we normally estimate an half target. Maybe you want to treat a certain number of men, women, adults, than children. We realize that consistently it's been a bit more difficult to get the children to be tested because of the difficulty in collecting samples. Although there are innovations around that, we're thinking of chest x-rays and all, but we really need to, there was a realization by the National TB Program and partners that are also supporting the program to say that we need to now create a special focus on children. So it's just like when you have a radio program specifically for children and you highlight children's role in society. So that's exactly what we're trying to do. So we're capitalizing on the fact that this is Children's Day. And so we're rolling this program out throughout this week to focus on them. There is also a national testing week around August or thereabout, but that's for general everybody. So but we decided to focus on children to cover that gap.
That's very honorable, right? I mean, because children need to pay attention to these children. Like you said, it's even more difficult to treat them because they cannot tell you what exactly is going on in their bodies. So I think this awareness is very necessary. Now let's see how far has this advocacy gone. It's the Ministry of Health. How far has been the response, with the government as regards resources and all of that?
So the good thing is we have a lot of partners supporting the government because the requirements to really beat tuberculosis is huge. The kind of resources that is required is really huge. And then, of course, there are issues of resource constraints generally. So, but because of the partnerships we have with several international organizations and even local organizations, we've been able to move together and, harness financial resources, human resources, and equipment and all technology to make sure that we tackle this problem. So we've started this advocacy around the country. Of course, we would have some preparations within ourselves. And then from last week, Friday, there are some specific mosques that we visited, even in Abuja here. And then churches also have been visited or were visited on Sunday. And so we're also moving into different areas. There are places we call hotspots, where we know that children will be gathered. Places like orphanages, we're also intensifying efforts around those places. So in every single state of the country, there are people we call the state TB program managers. So, and then every local government in Nigeria also has tuberculosis, leprosy supervisors at the local government level. And then majority of facilities also have people, health workers that are trained to treat tuberculosis. So you find out that across all the country, wherever you go, local government, states, we have people who have been trained and to make sure that we have targeted TB interventions across Nigeria. So it's a very, very broad-based program.
All right, let's talk about vaccine.
So basically, everybody's familiar with, or at least mothers will be familiar with BCG vaccine.
It wasn't long I discovered that BCG was that thing they give to because it's not, it doesn't sound tuberculosis, they just say BCG.
Because the full meaning is Bacillus calmette-guerin, so it sounds like the name of someone that kind of discovered the vaccine. So it's not really saying anti-tuberculosis vaccine. That's why it's not allowed. But then it's given to every child at birth to make sure that they are protected to an extent from the most severe forms of tuberculosis. So, and with the modern age, every child, is required to have that. So, but then it protects to a certain extent, to a certain age, and it wears off as people grow older. So, but then there are plans in the pipeline. There is research going on around the world, to test and see if we can get vaccines even for adults. So that will be the game changer. For now, we'll try to say that prevention is better than cure. So when you have people around, make sure that you observe cough etiquette, and then make sure that you check. There's something we used to say, check ammo, like make sure you check it. Don't just assume. So if your mother has a child that is just coughing and coughing, and if you're hearing this program, you know someone somewhere that has a child that's coughing, or even an adult that's been coughing for a long time, just intervene and then tell them to check it. And then, like we said, the same way we have physical structures to take care of tuberculosis across the country, we also have even digital structures like the phone number. I would like to repeat that. On your phone you can dial *3340#.
Okay.
And it will give you different prompts of whether you want to learn about tuberculosis, whether you want to go to a health facility to talk about the different geopolitical zones, narrow down to where you are, and tell you the nearest health facility that you can go to. Or you can just call directly 3340. It's still free. And then after a while, people can attend to you and discuss about what you need to do. So vaccines, but we're still looking at the ones that can work for adults. But for now, we have this vaccine that is over 100 years old. That's just for children to prevent the most severe forms of tuberculosis.
For them.
Yeah.
So how long does it take before it wears out?
Yeah, so generally, maybe within 5 years or thereabout, depending on the situation. But then, even when it doesn't wear out, it doesn't mean that when the child is exposed to, somebody who has active tuberculosis, the person can still come down with it, depending on the level of nutrition. So if you have a child that's malnourished, for example, that might not be too protective. So it's not absolute.
Okay. All right. It's not absolute. That's what he says about tuberculosis vaccines. I hope that we're listening and we're trying to pick out a point or two as we get tuberculosis. Remember, this entire week is dedicated to the child, National Child TB Testing Week. So if you have a child that is coughing constantly, and you have not done anything about it, this is your sign to go to the hospital. I hear all primary healthcare centers can, run the test and treatment for free.
Yeah, so we have what we call DOT facilities, that's direct observed therapy short course.
Okay.
And then we also have child-friendly formulations of, such that by the time people get there, you can get treatment that is specific to the age of the child.
Yeah.
So basically, everywhere you go, every particular hospital, even if they are not offering it, whether primary hospital, tertiary or secondary, they will be able to direct you to where it is done. So it is so widespread that all you need to do is either call 3340 or just go to the nearest health facility, and then you'll be directed to where you can get it. But one thing that is very important is we must approach tuberculosis and those who come down with it with love and not stigmatize them. Yeah, so make sure you act promptly to direct them to health facility and make sure you support them. That's the most important thing. So you could have a neighbor, speak with them with love, and then direct them that, maybe you should just check this to a cough that's been going on for a long time. And then you could even be on the streets, in public transport, and then somebody is coughing around you, and you could just say, dial *3340, and then get some help, or go to the nearest health facility. And because, like we said, all of this, the testing, the treatment, is all free. Yeah. So why die from something that is preventable, treatable, and even curable?
So yes, you already heard Dr. Daramola. He said, not when you enter public transport, and most of us were very fond of it, and someone is coughing, close your mouth, why are you just coughing on my body like that? You can help them, and you can just be nice about it. Yes. And I think why most of them don't come out to say these things is because of the stigma that they'll face. And if they talk about it, a lot of people will be saved from it. Because now I can tell you, hey, my friend, I'm having tuberculosis, so you have to be careful around me. You can't use my cup, but you're in my house already, and you want to use my spoon and my cup and all of those things.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, it doesn't really spread by those.
By those, really. Yes, but then, just caution.
So a lot of people, we agree that the awareness is low, and that's why we're doing this. And one thing we have to understand is within 2 weeks, when someone is on medication, the person can't even spread it anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it takes 6 months to cure, but from the first 2 weeks, the person is non-infectious, can't even spread it. So it's that easy. So, but there are other things like ventilation. You can make sure wherever. So even if you're in a vehicle, you can wind down, you can roll down the windows, and then make sure there's enough ventilation. and then you protect yourself and everyone around you.
Can use your nose mask, oh. Can still use it. You can still use your nose mask, so that you don't inhale or
But yeah, so like I said, it's all
Airborne.
different levels.
Okay.
You could be susceptible but not exposed. You could
Yeah,
be
yeah,
exposed
yeah,
but not
yeah.
infected.
Okay.
So most of the time, what is most important is, for example, before you use nose mask, make sure that the area is well ventilated. First of all,
Yeah.
So let the person have cough etiquette. Give some distance, and then make sure that even you as a person, you're taking care of your health. Like I said, is when immunity comes down,
Yeah.
that tuberculosis surfaces. So that's very important.
All right, people. I have been hanging out with Dr. Olakunle Daramola, and he is the Assistant Director of National Tuberculosis, Leprosy, and Brunelli Ulcer Control.
Yeah,
Did I
it's
get
a
it right?
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Sorry, just NTB-LCP. Yeah.
Okay, no, they won't know it. I have to tell them what exactly it is.
Federal Ministry.
Program, yes, from the Federal Ministry of Health. Thank you so much for sitting with us here.
Thank you.
Well, let's go on a
Pleasure.
very short break, and when we get back, we'll keep up this conversation. And then I will open up the phone line. So if you have any question for Dr. Olakunle, please indulge him. He's here, he's the professional, and he'll be in the right position to let us know all that we have to or we need to. So keep it locked in. We will be right back.
Do you have questions about your health? Well, look no further. On Mind and Body, you are our business. Tune in as we discuss with health experts on everything that concerns you and your well-being. Mind and Body. Mondays, 11 a.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja. About your health? Well, look no further. On Mind and Body, you are our business. Tune in as we discuss with health experts on everything that concerns you and your well-being. Mind and Body. Mondays, 11 a.m. on Eagles 102.3 FM, Abuja.
All right, welcome back. It's 20 minutes to the hour of 12. And this is still the nation's capital, Eagles 102.3 FM Abuja, your radio experience you can count on. And right, we are in the Mind and Body segment where we're talking about our health. Remember, they say health is wealth. So if you like money, you ought to be healthy because that's the only way you can have that money. So yes, of course, health is wealth. And I have been sitting right here in the studio with Dr. Daramola Olakunle, and he is the Assistant Director, National Tuberculosis, Leprosy, and Brunelli Ulcer Control Program.
Yeah, you got it right.
Yes, NTB-LCP, right?
Yes.
Yes, and this is from the Federal Ministry of Health. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us in the
You're
studio.
welcome.
Right. Now, before we keep up with the conversations, let me call out the phone numbers so that if you have any questions you would like to ask Dr. Daramola, then you just call in and ask those questions. The numbers remain the same, 09073 530044 or 09087668888. You can leave us a message on WhatsApp if you have any questions, and we will attend to those on 09097054450. Now, Doctor, let's talk about the preventive measures, because we've talked about the symptoms, we've talked about the causes and how it can be spread. But how can we prevent ourselves from coming down with tuberculosis?
Okay, so there are different ways. The first, the most important is to observe cough etiquette.
Okay.
So cough into the elbow or into a tissue, and then ensure that there is proper infection control. And of course, when someone is confirmed or diagnosed with tuberculosis, prompt placement on treatment, making sure that the person starts taking the drugs as soon as possible, because within the first 2 weeks, the person can no longer spread it.
Okay.
After that. So, and also people around, make sure that's enough ventilation around the house, such that since it's airborne, there's enough ventilation to make sure that there's limited spread of the disease. There's another angle for prevention, which is to have actual medicines. So even just like you take vaccines to prevent,
Yeah.
even though it has not happened yet, there are some drugs we call tuberculosis preventive treatment.
Okay.
And that one is reserved for those who are exposed to someone who is already confirmed to have tuberculosis. So let's say a mother or a father has tuberculosis, and then you want to protect the children, and then you give them what is called tuberculosis preventive therapy at the health facilities. So they'll take it for a period of time, 3 to 6 months, and then they would be protected from tuberculosis. The
Okay.
risk would be lower in them.
Okay.
So that's one very important aspect that we also want to increase advocacy about. Even children can also take TPT, that's the preventive tuberculosis preventive treatment,
Okay.
to make sure that they are not exposed to the risk of them developing tuberculosis is reduced. So there are child-friendly formulations that are even strawberry flavored and all that. That
okay,
can make it
that's
easier for
friendly.
them. Yes, to be protected from tuberculosis.
All
So
right.
prevention, as we say, is of course better than cure.
All right, prevention is better than cure. You already heard that, and I feel like you've heard it a lot of times. Now, something you said about cough habits or something.
Cough etiquette.
Cough etiquette,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Now, a lot of people would say they have handkerchiefs that they cough into. Please, can you help us tell us the danger of that? Because I think you're recycling whatever it is. Yes.
So basically, it's better to have tissue. Just the same way during COVID, everybody observed a lot of infection prevention measures.
Mm-hmm.
If you have tissue, sneeze or cough into it and throw it away. If it's advised that you also wash your hands,
Yeah.
immediately after. Or if that is not available, you cough or sneeze into your elbow.
Yeah.
If that is not available. So because if it's just into a handkerchief, of
handkerchief.
course you could be spreading it around, by just, there could be other, even apart from tuberculosis, there could be other infections that could be, spread around by contact with other people.
Yeah.
So there is general infection control. Of course, we know that COVID seems to be on the low key now, so
Yeah.
most people have lowered their guard.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is for us to make sure that we wash our hands regularly, and then we use tissue that is disposable,
Yeah.
not just handkerchief.
Yeah. All right. I hope we heard that. We use tissues because I think I read something about that you have a handkerchief and they said, no, don't use it. It's like bouncing back what you're trying to get away from. So, yes, that needed to be said. Thank you so much again for that. Now, let's talk about stigma.
Okay.
Why we're revisiting the issue of stigma is because a lot of people are ignorant, like you said, of the subject matter of tuberculosis. So they stigmatize other people for it. But again, if only people can be expressive about these things, then you know how to care for yourselves better. So let's hear talk about stigma and then what you are doing or the federal ministry is doing to, control that.
Okay. So stigma is a big one because some people there are different types of stigma. For instance, there is felt stigma or kind of self-stigma. People will stigmatize themselves. What would they say if they see me in the hospital and they hear that I have tuberculosis? So you've already started by stigmatizing yourself
Themselves.
based on what people will perceive of you. But the idea is the name just sounds big, but tuberculosis is just like a very, very easy disease to cure. So that's what we're doing, coming out on here now, and then making sure that people are exposed to the right information, that it is preventable, it is treatable, it is curable, and it costs nothing really for all the tests and the treatments to be given. So we also want to encourage everyone, everyone that has influence over others. For example, parents have influence in the household, religious leaders have influence, in the religious places, and CEOs have influence in their offices. Wherever you have people with influence, make sure that when you see someone coughing, you don't stigmatize them. You just encourage them to seek care and make sure that it doesn't actually spread, because when we stigmatize, we silence the voices of those that are having it, and then we reduce the chance that they will go. Meanwhile, they are spreading it.
Yes, that's the main problem.
So
They're
all of
spreading
us-
it. Yes,
all of us
we're
are at risk, at greater risk by stigmatizing them. So because there are people, a lot of the case of people that are in the school, maybe undergraduates, and then because of what the mates will say, or what other, maybe even the boyfriend will say, they start using cough syrup just to try and until it got too bad. So let's make sure that we give the right information to everyone. So the same way, like I said, some research show that within a year, if somebody has tuberculosis and is untreated, remember we said if the person starts treatment within 2 weeks, it's free, of being contagious to other people. But if it's untreated, within a year, the person can spread to 10 or 15 people. So why not let us make it a point of duty to reverse that and say, okay, I will tell about 10 or 15 people within a year too, about tuberculosis wherever I go, whether it's in the market, whether it's in the church or mosque. Everywhere you go, you go to a filling station, maybe someone is coughing, you go, okay, okay, please can you make sure you check this? It's just for your health, in a polite way that the person will not get angry. And if you're so busy that you don't want to talk too much, just tell them dial star 3340
Someone will help
and get
you
more
with that.
information about it. So that's how together we can reduce the stigma around it.
Yes. Together we can reduce the stigma around it. Like doctor said, be determined to telling 10 to 15 people that
At least,
tuberculosis is real. These are the numbers you need to know about, you need to call. So let's call those numbers out again so that we
Okay.
know.
So it's star 3340 hash.
Okay.
So if you dial that, it's toll free. Whether you're using any kind of phone or any kind of network, it will give you information. So if you dial star 3340 hash, it will now bring prompts. But if you call 3340 directly, it will take you to a toll-free line, and you wait a while, and someone will attend to you,
Okay.
and then they will guide you as to what to do. So 3340.
It's free.
Very,
You're not using your
Very free
airtime.
at all.
So it's completely free. You can send a text or you can call the numbers to find out, if you're safe or not. And your children as well. Remember, the entire conversation is about the child, right?
Yes.
And it's not an illness that is written on someone's forehead. Remember we said that, they might start to lose weight. Anything can make anybody lose weight. They can tell you they're dieting just because they don't want your stigma, So yes, let's be open to, even if it's not tuberculosis, let's be open to learning about certain things so that we know how to take care of ourselves and to deal with issues and to interface with people who have such illnesses. I don't think anyone plans to have a disease or an illness that they'll be working with. Just circumstances have put them in that place. So if you are sensitized enough and if you are now exposed to the right information, you can know how to deal with the issue and how to deal with such a person as well. We're talking tuberculosis today. Now let's talk about the child again before we head out. What do you think can be done to prevent the child from contacting, tuberculosis?
Okay, so for children, of course, they can't really take care of themselves. So we have to really take the message to the parents, the mothers especially,
Okay.
that there are so many other things that can cause cough, all right? But then it's important that when the cough persists, 3 days, 1 week, more than that, or 2 weeks, at that point in time, you should raise your level of suspicion and then try and check and then stop using cough syrup and then check if it's tuberculosis. So it is the parents that we need to educate and enlighten, because those are the people that will make the decisions on behalf of the child. So to every parent, to everyone, even that has contact with children, daycare centers, orphanages, places where children gather, schools, teachers, it's important that we are sensitized to know that we have this, should I say eagle eye, since this is a good lesson, to peak, when someone could be on that road to developing tuberculosis, and then help them out, because we are the ones that can help them, and then they are the future. And then it's a sign of responsibility when adults look out for children and make sure that the future generation are protected from what can harm them. And then for adults too that seem maybe they've been confirmed to have tuberculosis, make sure that you don't expose children, because their immunity level may be lower, and that's what we have to do. So it's a sign of responsibility, like I said, for the whole society. Any disease that, even though tuberculosis is not hereditary, it's not witchcraft and all those other misconceptions, but we must understand that a disease that is still common among children, it means the adults are not doing enough. So it's an indictment on adults in the society that we are still not protecting our children enough. And that's why we're doing this advocacy, to make sure that adults take up more responsibility to protect children and check their health as quickly as possible.
Yes, before we head out, let's talk about the misconceptions, because you mentioned it. Now, some of the misconceptions you hear is if you have tuberculosis, you come down with HIV, or if you have HIV, you come down with tuberculosis. Let's just talk about that basically.
Yeah, so of course there are risks, because for instance, tuberculosis in particular and HIV, they tend to make each other worse. So but it's not automatic, so someone that has tuberculosis would not necessarily have HIV, because the way people get HIV is totally different from the way
tuberculosis.
Yes. So but most times when people already have HIV, it can lower the immunity in a way that they can be more at risk of getting tuberculosis, but it's not automatic.
Okay.
And then that's where we have to increase the advocacy, because we now have double stigma for people that have both. There are actually people that have both,
Yeah.
and then they get cured of tuberculosis, and then HIV gets managed very well. And then we just need to reorientate us as the society that even HIV itself, people don't really die like before.
Yeah, before.
People live many years. You know, it's now become like a chronic disease like diabetes, hypertension. You know, that people manage for a long time. So it's high time we just strip off the stigma from every of these diseases and just see the objective fact, and then help people to, you know, cope with it, and then guide them to the right information. So malnutrition too lowers immunity for you know, tuberculosis, and that's why we need to look at ways whereby we can support when children are developing, especially when their weight is reducing and when they are not taking as much, how we can also tackle the root cause now before we move on to say, okay, let's treat tuberculosis. So prevention is key, and it's even cheaper.
It's cheaper. Yes, it's cheaper. Yes, early detection.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
you can
yes.
arrest it
Yes,
quickly.
and then a lot of people feel, oh, I'm too busy, or I don't have money, so I don't have time for all these, you know, health issues. But most times we know that by the time people, you know, God forbid, come down with diseases, the time that wasn't available will show up.
Exactly. Somehow.
The money
you
that
make
wasn't
time.
available somehow, you know. So that is why we need to put our minds to prevention, because when you actually don't have so much money, that's when you should prevent.
Yeah.
When you don't have so much time to lose, that's when you should prevent, because at the end of the day, it becomes cheaper in the long run, and it saves more, and the people get more productive in whatever they are doing. So don't let tuberculosis stop anyone in society. One of our slogans this year is no grief for TB.